I've worked with companies of all different sizes, from startups to billion-dollar companies and everything in between.
Welcome Steve Coughran to the show. Steve is the founder of Coltivar, which empowers companies to drive successful financial, operational, and strategic transformations.
I realized there's a massive gap between strategy and finance and like driving real value in business. And that's what got me started down this path. I wish I would have learned how to read financials earlier on, just because I lacked that financial knowledge in the beginning.
He has advised and served clients across many industries, and he loves to solve complex problems.
I can charge a client $500,000 because think about it, nobody's going to pay me 500 grand unless I'm driving at least a 10x return to them. Finance and strategy is very rare. Finding really good qualified people who can, lead and build businesses.
Where it's 250 a month, like it's 3 million a year.
I'm very, very blessed. Let's just say that.
Welcome Steve Coughran to the show. Steve is the founder of Coltivar, which empowers companies to drive successful financial, operational, and strategic transformations. He has advised and served clients across many industries and loves to solve complex problems. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Likewise, let's kick this off with what's your mission on this planet?
My mission on this planet is to elevate lives through better business. See, I believe that everybody has different gifts. Some people, they're really good at cooking and they bring a lot of joy and satisfaction and elevate people's lives through food or, through, medical practices, being a doctor or whatever it may be. For me, I'm a nerd where like my hobby is business. I love business just because it can transform lives. And so that's really what I'm all about, is just elevating lives through better business practices.
What inflection point made you start all of that?
Well, I started my first business when I was 16 years old, and I did that out of my sister's garage. It was a landscape company, and I grew it into a multi-million-dollar business. And during this time, here I was running this multi-million-dollar company, and I couldn't even read a financial statement. Like, sure, I'd get an income statement. I looked at sales and expenses and profit. I could understand that. But if you said, "Hey, Steve, how do you maximize your gross margin?" Or what is free cash flow and how do you compute it? I'd have no clue. So I did that. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, left a ton of money on the table. And then fast forward, I got my degrees, did my undergraduate in accounting and finance, got my MBA from Duke, great schools. And then I went to public accounting. Here I am working in public accounting. And I realized working on this billion-dollar client that they had one side of the team, the executive leadership team, saying, "Hey, here's our mission, here's our strategy." And then you have the finance people building out these budgets and forecasts, and they're saying, "Hey, these are the numbers that we're going to hit." And there's no connection between the two. And that's when I started Coltivar, because I realized there's a massive gap between strategy and finance and like driving real value in business. And that's what got me started down this path.
Yeah, I think that's the case in most of the companies. That's a good problem to solve. I love it. Just real quick before we move into that. So in your previous life, what did you do before Coltivar?
Yeah, before Coltivar, I was in public accounting at Ernst & Young. And then before that, I was doing my own thing. So that's really, building the landscape business. I did that for 13 years. I did Ernst & Young for a couple of years. And then I started Coltivar in 2009. And then since then, I've worked with companies of all different sizes, from startups to billion-dollar companies and everything in between.
So let's talk about today. If I were a typical client of yours, what's the core offer that I would buy from you?
It's a system. I bring to the table a system for, putting in place a real business strategy, not just a mission, vision, value statement, or not just a SWOT analysis. A lot of people mistakenly believe that's strategy, but it's coming into a business and saying, "Hey, let's make some choices about your market focus and position, about the competitive behavior in which you're going to engage in, your overall operating model, your structure, all these things, and let's make it cohesive so you can deliver a great experience to your end users," right? And then after you do that and you have a strategy in place and you go execute, okay, what's the process of measuring results and then making adjustments along the way? So it's a very systematic approach that I bring to the table that helps entrepreneurs to build their businesses and make them profitable.
One question on this. Is it like on-demand courses, group coaching, one-on-one coaching, done for you, done with you? How does it work?
Yeah, so I have a variety of paths. I always say, okay, if you're under $3 million, you could do the self-guided program. And, I have a variety of courses, online courses that you could take that will walk you through step by step how to put in place a strategy for your business. And then there's group calls that you can join in and get the support along the way. So that's a self-guided approach. But oftentimes I'll come across entrepreneurs and business leaders and like, Steve, look, I'm off busy, like hitting the numbers, growing the business, dealing with customers, like just come in and just do it. And so then I'll come in and just implement it in the business.
That makes sense. If I were to interview some of your clients and ask them what value in your offering do they rave most about, what will they tell me?
I think the biggest thing is they say, we love, Steve, how you have like the strategic mindset, how you can think strategically about things, but then also you bring the nerdy financial side to the equation. And I think that's what makes me really unique is because you either have somebody who's a big dreamer and a big thinker and they have all these, wild
Yep.
ambitions. And then on the other side of the equation, you have these nerds who are like, yep, I'm doing debits and credits. I can make your trial balance tick in time and I reconcile your bank account and do your income statement. And I bring to the table this like weird mix. I'm a creative, but I'm also very quantitative. And I think that's a very powerful combination that's very
Right.
rare in the marketplace.
Right. Let's talk about price points real quick. Where does it start on the low end? Where does it end on the high end?
I mean, on the low end, it's a few grand, $3,000 to work with me right now. At the high end, I'll have clients that pay $500,000 for an engagement in a given year. So it really varies by company.
Let me try to understand. So 3K a month, I guess?
3K
Where?
just for self-guided. 3K is just the year access to
Got it.
the online academy and everything else.
Okay. And yeah, and like up to $500,000 a year or
Yep.
per gig, which
And
is usually is like a year as well.
yeah, and that's when I'm getting into the clients on site and I'm really involved in the business.
Yeah, I love it. Good price points. What tools do you use to deliver the value to your customers?
Well, I mean, the online tools are really important, trying to deliver content in a way that is important and useful for the customer.
Yep.
So I'll use online tools, like the platform like that, but also um, you know, tools that I use every single day, like Calendly. Calendly is a big one. I love Calendly. I'm in Google Sheets a lot. I have my own software called Mative, and it's KPI and strategy management software that I'm like in all the time. I also lately I've been using Vidyard a lot. I don't know if you've ever heard of Vidyard,
Yeah.
but basically it's like you can record a short little video. So this has been a huge time saver. I'll create like a financial model for a client. So instead of hopping on a Zoom call and explaining it for 30 minutes,
Right.
I'll literally just record me talking, explaining it in, 5-10 minutes, send it off to them. They can watch it on their own time. And that's been extremely efficient. So I'm a big tech guy and I love using these tools to save time.
Take me on a timeline. When did you launch the business as is with the current offer stack?
I really started messing around with it back in 2019, I would say. I pretty much redid all the videos and training videos that I put out initially because, they're very rookie, very amateurish. So I've had to like redo it, but I've been messing around with like my podcast and this other content for years now. And now it's like much more formalized.
I I can relate to that feeling. Like back then you gave your best, and then 4 years later you look at it and you're like, oh, cringe.
Yeah. You're like, really? That's me? Dang, that's terrible.
Let's talk about success and about today. So, how many paying customers do you have in a typical month today?
In a typical month, usually it's, a couple hundred that I'm working with. And then the bigger clients, it's more of like a handful at a time. I could only handle so many and give them the right kind of attention. Those are the larger clients that I was referring to, but really the smaller clients or the self-guided clients, really the sky's the limit when it comes to scaling that side of the company. But if I'm hopping on a plane and flying around, I got to balance my personal life and everything else in the process. So those I definitely limit to just a handful.
If you think the creator economy is really interesting, then I got something for you. On milliondollarcreators.club, we actually created a database of all the creators out there, and you see not just their fans, followers, subscribers, but actually how much money are they making. So with that, we bring now transparency into the creator economy, and you really see how are the best of the best get their customers, price their offers, create their offer stack, get customers, which tools are they using, how will they grow and triple their business going forward. So if that's interesting for you, including lists of who makes the most revenue, who has the fastest revenue growth, who has the biggest audience, who has the fastest growing audience, who makes the most revenue per follower, and who has the most exciting offer stack from low end all the way to the high end, then go to $1 Million Creator Stuff Club and enjoy the data. Okay, let me run the numbers because I love to do that. So let's say 500K a year is the high end. That's 40K a month. 5 times 40 is 200. And then you got another 200 self-guided, and self-guided is 3K divided by 12 is $250. $250 times 200 is 5K, 50K. 50K, what was the first number that I had?
Well, you had your 40K times 5. Let's just say, I know you're doing the math here. Let's just say I'm very fortunate, but I'll also say this because I think for a lot of creators, they think,
It's
oh wow,
250. Where it's 250 a month, like it's 3 million a year. Ballpark.
Yeah, I'm very, very blessed. Let's just say that. Okay. But
Yeah.
like I was saying,
It's
I think for creators, oftentimes they'll say, hey, I got this idea, whether it's a fitness app or whether it's something else, and they'll launch it and it's very discouraging. And I've been there before. I have this other platform called Boosting Your Financial IQ where I, teach people how to read financial statements and the story behind the numbers. And look, it takes a lot of time to get traction, and that's okay. But like getting to the point where I can charge a client $500,000
Yes.
has taken years and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours and mistakes and all this hustle to get there. Because think about it, nobody's going to pay me 500 grand unless
No.
I'm driving at least a 10x return to them. So
Yep.
if I'm going to charge them 500 grand, I'm making them at least $5 million in profit, not revenue. And I think that's the key to really understand and point out here, just so people don't get the wrong idea.
Yeah, no, 100% spot on. Yeah, if you don't, yeah, it's value, and then word of mouth referrals and so on and so forth. Otherwise, I mean, who would pay for a K if there's no trust?
Yeah,
You wouldn't do
exactly.
it. One more question before we move on. Like on the recurring side, right? Like, is that recurring or reoccurring nature? Meaning that customers that you work with once will work with you over and over again. Like, how much of that of your revenue is reoccurring or recurring nature?
I'd say about 70% of my clients are recurring greater than a couple of years.
Nice.
And, some clients it's just one and done. I come in, I'll turn around a company and then we're good. But oftentimes, I've been working with, for example, I have a meeting with a client tomorrow. I've been working with them since 2012, I think. And so they just renew every single year
Yeah,
because
amazing.
I deliver the value, right? The value's got to be delivered. That's the key.
100%. Real quick, to understand growth as well, compared to a year ago, right? How's the ramp up? Let's say now it's 250K, like a year ago, half of that, 80% of that, 20% of that. Like how are you growing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ramp up is definitely exponential, but I could tell you, like initially, it's just like
Yeah,
flat, and then it's like, and then you get that. So, it's those years initially up front where you're banging your head against the wall trying to get stuff to work, and it can be very frustrating and very discouraging. So, like I said, I think that's the key. It's the thousands and thousands of hours that I put in to being able to say, hey, look, I could build a pricing model for you in 2 hours, but it only took me 8 years to get there.
yeah, of course. Let's talk about OpEx real quick. How big is the team? Is it you and a few contractors? And what drives the cost side on your P&L? Like, what are the biggest items?
Yeah, I mean, labor's the biggest cost, right? And yeah, it's me and remote teams that work with me on different projects, whether it's on like the software development side or financial modeling or sales and marketing or content creation and editing and all that. So it's that's the biggest cost of my business is the labor.
Right. Yeah, and how big is the core team? Is the core team like you, and then you have like a few contractors, and that's it, very likely, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say the core team, really like 3 individuals at the core, and then contractors
Yeah.
outside of that.
Okay, very cool. Let's talk about customer acquisition real quick. So, how do you get eyeballs awareness about your offers?
Yeah, I mean, my podcast has been a big source of customer acquisition. So people will go to my podcast. I have two called Business Strategy, and then the other one's called Boosting Your Financial IQ. And people listen to the podcast and get thousands of downloads a year, or not a year, thousands of downloads a day across the world. And people will come on there. They'll often take a financial IQ assessment, or they'll go to the website, and that's a big lead generator. Also, reaching out directly or speaking at conferences. That's also been those are other two big resources for me.
Right. So, podcast to financial assessment, and then email nurture to discovery calls, or
Yep, discovery calls. Like I'll offer a free strategy call, and then going to conferences. And I've written multiple books, so I'll go to a conference and
yeah.
bring some books with me, hand them out to the audience. Inevitably, I'll get some calls off that, and those are the primary sources there.
What has been your secret to grow and convert your audience?
Empathy. But definitely wasn't always there. I know that's the buzzword, the day, empathy and whatnot, but I truly mean it. I think back in the day, I would get really interested in a certain topic, and that's what I would want to talk about. So I'd go to a conference and I'd be excited about data analytics 10 years ago before it was mainstream.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's what I like. So I'm going to talk to the audience about that. Instead of going to an audience and thinking, what are they struggling with? What are their pain points? And how can I like walk in their
Yeah.
shoes and deliver a message based on that? And I think when I started changing that and really understanding who my customers were from a behavioral standpoint, psychoanalytic standpoint, it really changed my company.
Before we continue, there's one favor I would like to ask. If you enjoy what we do here and you enjoy the guests that we bring, please join Million Dollar Creators by hitting the subscribe button. And if you do, I'll make you a deal. I do everything in my power to make this show bigger and better for you. Do we have a deal? Enjoy the show. Yeah. Have you read The Artist Way by any chance? Like where you essentially just learning from, you don't create art for the others, you create art for yourself, but because you create art for yourself, you actually solve a really big problem in the world because
Oh,
they can relate to that. So like it's pretty spot on what you just said. So I would argue or add to that, it's not just nerdiness, it's not just empathy, it's also nerdiness about things that you like, and therefore solving a need which currently is not served by the market. But let's move on. Future. Can you triple the business with your current resources? And what strategy or tactic will get you there in the next 12 months?
I think I could triple the business, but do I want to triple the business? That's really the question. As I get older and as I get more intentional about my time, time is like the currency that I'm most concerned about. Do I want to go hire more people on my staff to go advise companies? Do I want to hop on more planes? Do I want to sit in more
Yeah.
boardrooms? I'm making more of a transition where I'm more interested in taking an equity position in companies and sitting more on like a board level, advising businesses versus being in the day to day. And that's why I'm building out all the content and documenting my journey along the way. So then I can say, hey, look, I don't have to go explain this 100 times. You could just go take this course. Let me walk you through the stuff step by step. And that's why I love the technology that exists today. Because back in the day, I mean, imagine if I said pre-COVID, hey, look, CEO, I'm not coming to your office. Let's hop on a Zoom call. They'd be like, what the heck's a Zoom call?
Yeah.
And you better get your butt on a plane. And I think now with the tools and resources and where the world's going,
Yeah. It's
it's going
accepted.
to allow me to scale without being like in-person scaling.
That's spot on. What's the biggest thing holding you back personally on that next level of yours?
Yeah, I think it's just I'd say just talent. I think there's a big talent gap out there in the world. And I mean, look, even just in the world of accounting, not that I get into too much accounting, but in the world of accounting, just they have a massive gap. Just people aren't going into the field, accounting and finance. But even just in business in general, I think it's a downside for me, but it's also a great thing because it just means that organizations realize, look, finding somebody who's really good
Yeah, tough.
with finance and strategy is very rare. So it helps me, but it's a hindrance as well, finding really good qualified people who can, lead and build businesses.
Next section is called Favorite Five. It's a fast paced section and you can answer with one word. What's your favorite book or business book?
My favorite business book is probably Essentialism. And it really talks. It's Greg McCowan wrote the book, and he talks about good, better, and best, and essentially like how do you focus on the things with the biggest upside. And that really changed my life, and it allowed me to go through and just like cut all the non-essential and focus on the highest value drivers in a company.
What's your favorite way to get inspiration and to learn and grow?
For me, like inspiration comes from reading books, listening to podcasts, consuming content.
What's your favorite person that you are studying, your role model?
My favorite role model. That's a good question. I really like Steve Schwartzman of Blackstone. He's been a very important person in my life. Not that we have this like personal relationship, but just understanding his story and how he built the world's largest private equity firm has been a real inspiration to me.
What's your favorite event or conference that you have attended or would love to attend?
Hmm. Good question. Yeah, I'd probably just say, I'd love to get into more AI type conferences. I haven't been to any, and just get more involved in that world. So that'd be
What's your
great.
favorite online tool for building your company?
Hmm. Favorite online tool, email, just basic email.
What's
That's a
the
great
favorite?
way to communicate and build a company.
Yeah, email still works, and Zoom you said also earlier. What's your favorite city or place to move to?
San Diego. That's where I'm from originally. I love San Diego.
Agree?
It's beautiful there. I love the beach. Wouldn't mind doing more surfing. And I'm just getting tired of the cold weather. I'm in Denver. It's not that bad, but yeah, San Diego is beautiful to me.
Yeah. Every time I go to Phil's Barbecue. I don't know if you know this one.
No, I don't, but I need to write that
It's a
down.
barbecue chain. Biggest thing on your mind?
Biggest thing on my mind is just to me, last week is what things am I doing and what do I need to cut? I think it's so easy as an entrepreneur to just add. Here's a
Yeah.
new idea. Here's a new idea. And to me, it's like, what can I cut for my life? So
Yeah.
just cutting.
The
How do
stop
I cut?
doing list.
Yep.
Love that. Personal section also real quick. How many hours do you work per week?
Too many.
What is
Too
that?
many.
Minus like
I get up at 4 in the morning. I'll work out, read, do all this sorts of stuff just for an hour. And then, oftentimes I'll work until 6, put the kids to bed, work a little bit more, work on the weekend. So it's a lot, but
okay, so
I love
40
what I do.
times 7 is 98. 100.
Probably not 100, but it's probably around between 60 and 80. 40
Okay.
is like 40 would be a vacation.
Yep. We're back in consulting. We always said we like the 40-hour work week so much that we do it twice every week.
Yeah, I
How
like
many
that.
hours do you sleep per night?
Not enough either. 6 is kind of what I need, like at a minimum, but I'm bad. I'm so bad with sleep. Usually it's 5. Very, very rarely do I get 8. So
What's the situation? Married, single, any kids?
married. I have 5 kids with our blended family, 2 of my own.
And what's your age?
My age, 44.
Final question. I also want to give some advice to the audience. If you could go back in time and have a conversation with your 20-year-old self, what's the best piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Probably the best piece of advice is just, I wish I would have learned how to read financials earlier on. I mean, that would have made such a difference in the world, in my world. Like I said, I left so much money on the table, and I probably will end up working 5 or 10 more years, just because I lack that financial knowledge in the beginning.
That's Steve Coughran. He's the founder of Coltivar, and he actually empowers companies to drive successful financial, operational, strategic transformations. He has really built a multi-7-figure business even before doing that from the garage, building a landscape company, and now he's built a company which really helps connecting the strategy with the financials, and therefore creating a lot of impact for these companies. And the success proves today that with customers paying up to $500,000 per year for that, and he delivers a 10x return on that, he's providing great impact. With that, he has created a 7-figure company, mid-7-figure company, and he's very happy with that. He has good impact. He loves conferences as well to get customers from, and the podcast is great because the podcast essentially builds up trust with the audience before they then take a financial assessment and then jump on a discovery call. With that, he has built his audience up. And next stage is to join advisory boards and get an equity stake to leverage his knowledge and expertise that he built up over the last decades even further. Steve, thank you so much for sharing your passion and taking us to the next level.
Great. Thank you for having me on the show. Cheers.